Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it. We have finally made it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. Today is the day, one of the biggest days on the NFL calendar. The NFL draft kicks off tonight in Green Bay, 1 a.m. over here in the UK. I will be up for the whole draft, so it's going to be a pretty late one for me, but really looking forward to it, really excited. The Browns, of course, picking second overall, a chance to bring in a, generational, shall we say, type player. It's going to be incredibly exciting. This is the first time, I think, in the common draft era that every team owns their first round pick. That's probably going to change. I'm sure we're going to see some trades. So as I said, really looking forward to it. But before we go into the draft tonight, I just wanted to plant my flag, I suppose, on a few guys on my line of thinking. I haven't really done any of these during the process because I'll be honest, I can get a little bit sick of doing these. But mock drafts, my first and final. As I said, just want to kind of plant my flag on a few guys and where I think the Browns are going to be, targeting and looking at. I've got two mock drafts that I want to show you. One of them is, they're both realistic. They're both in line with what I think the Browns' plans are and players within those range. But let's just say one is a little bit more hopeful and is more of the, more of a dream scenario, shall we say, for me personally. But again, still in line with that realistic approach, as well as players that I do think the Browns are going to target. So you'll obviously see some players, some of the same players on both of those mock drafts as well. But before we get into the mocks, of course, there's a lot of talk about maybe the Browns are going to trade up out of the second pick, trade back. I was going to do a mock draft with a trade back, but to be honest, it's so hard with these simulators to actually get the trade options. And to be honest, I don't really want to put bad energy and vibes, out there. I don't want to manifest it. Look, if they get a godfather offer for that number 2 pick, I get it. You get a future first, fair enough, but I'm not really interested in trading back to, 4 or 5 because you're probably not going to get a future first. All you are doing is taking yourself out of consideration for Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter for what? Not that much of a benefit, maybe an extra second. So if you are going to trade back and you get a godfather offer, maybe someone later than 8 future first round picks, I'd understand it. But as it stands, I don't really want the Browns to trade back. I think there's only 2 options they can do, and that's either draft Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. They have to walk away from this draft with one of these guys, unless, as I said, they get the godfather offer. But that's why I didn't want to do a mock with the trade back, because, as I said, don't want to put any bad energies. We've seen some pretty bad trade backs from the Browns over the years, so let's hope we don't get a repeat of that. But kicking us off with my mock drafts, I'm going to start with the more slightly hopeful one, because why not? As I said, I don't want to put bad energy out there, so let's put some good energy out there. With the first pick, their first pick of the draft, number 2 overall, of course, is Travis Hunter. We all know this is the pick if they stay at number 2. I've been in the boat of Abdul Carter was my preference for most of the off season, and during this process, I did say that 1A, 1B for me, I'd be perfectly happy with either. I think they're the best 2 players in the draft. It's just that Abdul Carter was slightly above in my preference, just because of the kind of excitement and the idea of pairing him with a Myles Garrett. But as of course it's been pretty certain, and all the reports kind of point towards Travis Hunter, I'm fully locked in, fully ready for Travis Hunter to be a Cleveland Brown. Might even buy the jersey before it even happens, no, I can't do that. I'll double jinx it. But I am fully locked into this pick. Cannot wait for this pick. Travis Hunter, generational athlete. at worst, generational player at best. Truly is a gap, as I said, between him and Abdul Carter and every other player in this draft. Two-way superstar. He's going to bring so much excitement, so much box office to this Cleveland Browns team and organization. If you haven't seen my prospect dive on him, go check that out for the more kind of in-depth stuff and, his strengths and weaknesses. But this is a slam dunk pick. The Browns can't go wrong with either Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. It's going to be Travis Hunter. I am perfectly not just happy, but excited about that and are looking forward to that. So pick number 2, Travis Hunter. And then pick 33, as I said, the slightly more hopeful one, Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama. Again, if you want to go watch the prospect dive I did on Milroe, you can check that out. I've got him pretty high. He's been my number 1 target at quarterback for the whole offseason, mainly because the idea that you could get him at 33 as well. Jack Brentnell, who I did that video with, he is very high on Jalen Milroe, has him as his quarterback too. Look, at the end of the day, I've said it before on this channel, this isn't a great quarterback class. There's not really... the top-end talent is pretty bad, shall we say. It's Cam Ward, and even then, in other drafts, would he be at the top? I don't think so. But, of course, Shedeur Sanders, but how far is he going to fall? That's the question. So, for me, Jalen Milroe has always made the most sense. I think he's got the best tools. If anything, he's going to be a top 5, top 5 athlete at the quarterback position in the NFL. Andrew Berry said it himself. He might be the only person that's faster than Lamar Jackson. So everything else fails. You at least have that. In the end of the day, as I said, with a bad quarterback class, I'm always going to bet on upside. I'm always going to bet on traits. I think Jalen Milroe has the best traits that I'm willing to bet on. And I'd argue it even has the highest upside in this class. So for me, Jalen Milroe makes the most sense. If he's there at 33, you've just got to do it. 67 in this draft, round 3, first of 2 picks in the 3rd round. Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. I've sang his praises quite a lot on this channel. I just think he screams Cleveland Browns running back. You watch the tape, he is such a perfect scheme fit in a zone run scheme. He's such a patient runner, yet he's got, such good change of direction, his ability to just stop and cut. He's a patient runner, as I said. He can process, waiting for gaps to open. He's just such a good running back to have in this scheme and to have behind the Browns' offensive line. People will point to the testing and say that his athletic profile is not good enough. They'll look at the 10-yard split and base their entire draft evaluation on that. For me, I've watched enough tape of Caleb Johnson, enough games of Caleb Johnson to be pretty confident that he could be an NFL starter, especially for the Cleveland Browns. I think this, as I said with Jalen Milroe, makes the most sense at quarterback. Caleb Johnson, you could argue, makes the most sense at running back. Just a perfect fit for the Browns. Can't sing his praises enough. If he's there at 67, that would be awesome. And I think that he might be there at 67 compared to some of these other guys, maybe a Trevion Henderson, because, as I said, the athletic testing is bound to make some teams, fall away from him a little bit. So hopefully that is the case. Hopefully he does fall, because I'll be perfectly happy for the Browns to have him fall into their lap at 67. Then at 94, I have gone with tight end Harold Fannin, Bowling Green. Look, he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, and he's not the quickest. He's not a very good blocker. But to be honest, he does grade out fine, and I think there's room to grow into at least an average blocker. But at the end of the day, you aren't drafting a tight end in the top 100 to block. You're drafting them to make an impact in the passing game, and that's something that I think Fannin can bring to the NFL. Nearly 2,400 receiving yards and 17 touchdowns in 3 seasons at Bowling Green, as well as 5 rushing touchdowns as well, actually, and about 200 rushing yards. He's an elite route runner at the tight end position and has fantastic hands, which is evident with just, I think, 2 drops on over 170 career targets. He's a great yak threat. He led all tight ends in yak and broken tackles in college football last year. Just a really good, versatile receiving tight end that, I think could one day develop into a Pro Bowler. If he's there at 94, I think you have to take him. The Browns need a tight end. They need bodies in that room. You could argue they need multiple. I think, yes, he's not a great blocker, but David Njoku, in my opinion, is a more than above average blocker. He's a very good blocker. If you're looking for that receiving role similar to a Jordan Akins that they've had the last couple of years, why not go Harold Fanning? I don't think there's, arguably the better receiver in the draft at the tight end position. Of course, yes, he's got lots of other faults, and that's why he will fall to day 2. But maybe even day 3. No, he won't go to day 3. He'll be day 2. But, compared to some of these other guys. But I think if he's there, as I said, you've got to take him. And then pick 104, round 4. Billy Bowman, safety out of Oklahoma. Bowman is one of my favourite safety prospects in the draft this year. He is a legitimate bull hawk. He had the second most interceptions of any safety in college football since 2022 with 11. He's a legitimate free safety. That's something the Browns really need. He's certainly a little bit on the smaller side, but he makes up for it with a high motor and aggressive play style. Whilst he's a legit free safety, as I said, and can more than hold his own in single high coverages, he does also offer positional versatility as well. He can be effective closer to the line of scrimmage. He had 19 defensive stops and 3 tackles for loss last season. I just think he would slot in as the Browns' free safety really well. But, you could also move him and Delpit around, which offers a lot of versatility at the safety position. This would be a great pick, in my opinion. I've said it for quite a while now that, safety is a position that the Browns need to address, and one that I want them to address in the draft. I'm sick of them bringing in these free agent veterans for pretty decent amounts of money just for them to suck. Let's draft a guy, let's develop a guy, and let's have someone to be a partner next to Delpit for the next half a decade. And I think Billy Bowman could be that. So to get him at 104 would be pretty good value there, and would be a really good pick in my opinion. And then Browns don't have a 5th round pick. So moving on to the first of their, 4 6th round picks that I think they have this year. Pick 179. I have gone with Jalen Rivers, offensive tackle out of Miami. If the Browns don't go offensive line with their first 5 picks, then I expect they'll take a flyer or 2 later in the draft. Someone like Jalen Rivers fits that mold well. He's a subpar athlete, to say the least, and will probably never be a starter in the NFL. But his combination of size, versatility, and intelligence make him a decent depth piece on the offensive line. He's not a great run blocker, but he's a pretty stout pass protector and offers positional flexibility at both tackle and guard. He's played both in his college career. As a potential swing tackle or depth piece on the offensive line, I think Jalen Rivers would be a decent pick, and one that, if they were looking to go later at O-line, then someone I think they would be looking at. And then pick 192, the second of their 6th round picks, Riley Mills, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Obviously, Browns not going Abdul Carter. I think that means they probably, unless someone falls, they probably don't go defensive line as early as they have in other drafts. So if they are to go a bit later, I think Riley Mills is a great shout. He's going to fall due to an ACL tear last December that could potentially sideline him through all of training camp and into next season. However, the upside here at 192 is tough to pass up on. He could have been a day 2 pick if it wasn't for the injury. He's got great athleticism for his size at 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, and provides pass rush upside at the 3-tech position, whilst also being, versatile enough to move around the line as well. Again, the injury is of course a concern, but when you're picking in the 6th round, you're purely going on potential and upside, and I think Mills has the potential worth betting on. So moving on to pick, I can't even remember what this pick is now. Are we in the 200s yet? Pick 200 exactly. I've gone Dante Thornton out of Tennessee, wide receiver. Not entirely sure why a 6'5" receiver who ran a 4.3 will be here in the 6th, but he's always here in these mock draft simulators, so I'm just going to take him. The Browns are bound to take a receiver somewhere in the later rounds. They always do. And Thornton is a legit deep threat that feels like a Browns type pick. And yes, that is partially because he played at Tennessee. Got to keep Jimmy happy. But in all seriousness, this would be decent value here in the 6th round for Thornton. As I said, 6'5" receiver that runs fast, legitimate deep threat in the 6th round. That's something I'm willing to take a bet on. And then the final pick in the 6th round, pick 216, I have double dipped at running back, Raheem Sanders out of South Carolina. Similar with tight end, I think the Browns, whether it's tight end or running back, they probably need to draft 2 just to get bodies in that room. So here I've gone running back, Raheem Sanders. Pardon me. Good size, good athletic profile to go along with, decent enough production across 4 years at college. As I said, the Browns probably need to double dip at running back, so it would make sense to just take an upside running back player here. And then I will be honest, as I did in both of these drafts, I traded away the 7th round pick because do the Browns need to make 10 picks? I don't think so, and let's just trade that pick for a future 7th. Why not? It's my mock draft. But that was the slightly more, shall we say, hopeful one. If this is the Browns draft, I would be incredibly happy with this draft. I would come on here and sing its praises. And I do think it is certainly in the realms of possibility that the draft could look like something like this. So, as I said, probably best case scenario, best outcome here. Just to recap it, Travis Hunter, number 2 overall. Jalen Milroe at number 33. Caleb Johnson at 67. Harold Fannin at 94. Safety Billy Bowman at 104. Offensive tackle Jalen Rivers at 179. Defensive tackle Riley Mills at 192. Wide receiver Dante Thornton at 200. And running back Raheem Sanders at 216. And then moving on to my, as I said, not that it's more realistic, but I suppose, it's not going to be a perfect draft for the Browns. They've already lucked into the fact that they have just got Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter falling into their laps because the Titans have fallen in love with Cam Ward. It's quite rare the Browns get lucky multiple times in a draft. So, will Jalen Milroe be there at 33? That's the question, that kind of stuff. So this is kind of operating on that basis that, Milroe's not there at 33 and maybe, a Caleb Johnson goes earlier and that kind of stuff. So just kind of being a bit more on the conservative side of things. But number 2, the pitch is still Travis Hunter. As I said, this is the pitch. I would be shocked at this point if it's not Travis Hunter. It's going to be Travis Hunter. That's going to be the pick. But at 33, here I've gone Josh Connolly, offensive tackle out of Oregon. I think, if Milroe's gone at 33, they don't go quarterback at 33. It's probably going to be BPA, kind of with an eye on offensive line / defensive line. Josh Connolly, borderline first round talent at tackle. He's still only 21 years old, so is somewhat of a developmental pick, but the upside is pretty high, arguably as high as maybe any other offensive tackle in the draft, and he could become a legitimate starter in the NFL. He's got good size, a great athletic profile. He moves really, really well for his size. His processing is beyond his years, and whilst he is a better pass protector at this point in his young career, the potential as a run blocker, especially in a wide zone scheme, is pretty exciting. Blend his rare movement skills with his size and power, and he'll for sure be putting up some highlight reel pancakes on the edge and in the open field. Stefanski loves having his linemen be able to move in his zone run scheme, and that's something Connolly can do arguably as well as anyone else in this draft. He might not be here at 33, but as I said, it feels like if the pick isn't quarterback here, then they probably will go, best player available with an eye on offensive or defensive line. If Connolly is gone, Minnesota's Ursary could be in play here. Or if they go D-line, then a Nick Scotton or a Zuccaroo out of Boston College if he falls, could be in play here. But I've gone with Josh Connolly here at 33. And then at 67, I have gone Elijah Ario, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm probably wrong. I'm so bad with names. But I think Mason Taylor and Terrence Ferguson would also be in play here. And I'd personally rather go with Mason Taylor if he was available, but this was just how the board fell on this mock draft. Ario is probably the riskier pick, but could come with higher upside. He didn't have much college production before this past year and is still pretty raw as a tight end, but he has all the physical tools and great athleticism at the tight end position to potentially develop into a good tight end in the NFL. He'll be 22 years old when drafted, which isn't as young as Mason Taylor, who will be 20, but is still pretty young for a tight end prospect. Again, as I said, there's a few other guys in play here, but I do think tight end gets addressed around this spot, and in this kind of more conservatively looking mock draft, I think they probably think that the guys that they want are out of range by the next pick, so they decide to go with Elijah Ario here at 67. 94, I have gone with Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. They have to go running back, even in this conservative mock draft. They need to go running back within the first 4 to 5 picks. And this just feels like another Browns pick. If the Browns do miss out on guys like Caleb Johnson or Trevion Henderson, this would be my pick at running back at this spot. The most prolific rusher in Jayhawks history. Neal has legit breakaway speed, despite what his 4.5 40 might suggest. He's got great size for the position, and similar to a Caleb Johnson, he would be a great fit in the Browns zone run scheme with natural vision, great change of direction, and the ability, similar to Caleb Johnson, to plant his foot and cut. As I said, just feels like a Cleveland Brown. If they don't go running back early, Devin Neal should certainly be in play around this spot and could also potentially even be in play at 67 as well. And then what is my next pick? Pick number 104, final pick in the 4th round. Browns address quarterback. As I said, I think the Browns, this is a conservative version, but I still think the Browns are going to go quarterback in the draft, regardless if they go in my more hopeful one or conservatively. So for this one, obviously, as I mentioned, they, of course, under this scenario, miss out on a Jalen Milroe and some of those guys. So they take their quarterback in the 4th round, and it is Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, of course, formerly Ohio State as well. They could maybe go Will Howard here, but I think, he could come off the board earlier than some people think. Plus, it's the Browns, so of course they will draft Kyle McCord. But all seriousness, he doesn't have any traits that stand out, but he is a Stefanski quarterback to a T. I don't think you can argue that. He's got a really, really quick release, good pre-snap recognition, and he's pretty accurate on short to medium routes to go along with a decent deep ball. It is pretty Kirk Cousins-esque, shall we say. He's not perfect, no quarterback is, especially not a day 3 one. But the fit is there to make sense as a pick here if the Browns are to miss on a quarterback within their first 3 picks. You could argue they could maybe get McCord later, but I think with the Browns not having a 5th round pick, I doubt they would risk waiting until the 6th round to address quarterback. So I think they would take McCord here in the 4th. So that's why I've gone with him. Pick number... I keep forgetting the bloody picks now. Pick number 179. So as I said, quite a big gap between, pick 104 and then the next pick up. A whole round in between those picks. So round 6, pick 179. I've gone with safety Jalen Reed out of Penn State. Again, I've said it already, the Browns need a safety. If they don't take one within their first 5 picks, then they'll have to take a flyer on someone later in this draft. Reed has a good athletic profile at the position and solid production at a high level in college. Of course, playing for Penn State. He's versatile and can play both safety roles, which means, similar to a Bowman, you can move him and delp it around. But not similar to a Bowman, he really needs to improve in coverage. He is not great in coverage, and it's why I would personally like to target safety earlier, because, as I said, the Browns need a true deep safety. But I'm not entirely sure they have room to fit a safety in. Hopefully, as I said, best case scenario, it is a Billy Bowman. But if that's, if they are unable to fit one in, it's more likely they go for a later round guy like Reed, in my opinion. Next pick I have, again, as I said, some of these picks do intertwine. 192, I've gone Dante Thornton, again out of Tennessee. High upsides, low value, low risk, high upsides. He's 6'5", ran a 4.3, true deep threat. Why not take that chance if he's here? Will he be here on the actual draft? I doubt it, but as I said, all of these mock draft simulators, it doesn't matter which one, all had Dante Thornton pretty much around here, so I'm going to take him. I then also took Riley Mills as well, defensive tackle, same as I did with my other one. I just think these two guys, look, it's the 6th round, it's the end of the draft, you're just purely, betting on potential and upside, so whether that's best case scenario or a conservative scenario, that's still going to apply. So Dante Thornton and Riley Mills, 2 picks in the 6th round in both of these mock drafts. And then finally, last pick in the 6th round, because I traded away the 7th round in both of these because I wasn't making a 7th round pick, is Kobe King, linebacker out of Penn State. So I know 2 Penn State players in one draft. I'm not sure we can be having that. But what can I say? The Browns need a few more bodies in that linebacker room. Might as well use one of these later picks on a linebacker. King is a little bit on the smaller side, but he's a pretty good run stopper and a really good downhill tackler. You could certainly do worse in the 6th round than Kobe King. That is for sure. But that's that one. So just to recap it, number 2, Travis Hunter, 33, Josh Connolly Jr., 67, Elijah Ario, tight end, 94, Devin Neal, running back, 104, Carl McCord, quarterback, 179, Jalen Reed, safety, 192, Dante Thornton, wide receiver, 200, Riley Mills, defensive tackle, and 216, Kobe King, linebacker. They're my 2 mock drafts. As I said, there are some similarities between them, but one of them's a slightly more hopeful, one of them's a slightly more conservative, but that's where I'm going to plant my flag as we head into this draft. For me, as I said, with that first pick, it's got to be Travis Hunter, it's got to be or Abdul Carter. It has to be one of those. They have to walk away from this draft with one of those, unless they get multiple first round pick. Okay, multiple is a bit much, but unless they get a future first round pick for it, would love to see them walk away with Jalen Milroe, of course. He has been my number 1 option all off-season, even back when people were laughing at me for even mentioning his name, compared to now where even Mary Kay is saying that they should go and do it. So I will be honest, I will do a little bit of, I will do a little bit of kind of relishing in the kind of, oh, look, I was early on Jalen Milroe kind of thing if they do draft him, but then, that will make it look even more hilarious if he does fail and I look like an idiot. So that's the fun of the draft in the end of the day. Would love to see him walk away with a Caleb Johnson, maybe a Devin Neal, Harold Fannin, Elijah Ario, Mason Taylor, Billy Bowman at safety. But as I said, these are my 2 mock drafts. I will put both of them up on the screen now just so you can see a visual representation of them. But as I said, that will do it for me. Just wanted to do my first and final mock drafts, plant my flag on some players, on some prospects, what I think the Browns are going to do. I said about it in my draft preview video the other day. I think it's going to be a combination of, after the Travis Hunter pick, it's going to be a combination of quarterback, running back, tight end, safety, offensive line. Of course, there's not enough picks in the first 5 picks for all of those positions. They'll have to give somewhere. But that's where I think the Browns will be looking to go. Probably going to see more offense than defense, but that doesn't mean we won't see any defense at all. As I said, safety could be a wild card pick to come off the board earlier than people expect. If it is, I wouldn't be against it at all. But I'm getting too excited now, so I should probably just end this video. So that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. And as I said, I'll be up all draft, all night for it, early hours of the morning in the UK. So make sure you go and follow me so you can get in touch and we can interact during the night and all of that good stuff. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans. And even if that only means getting to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you all have an amazing night, an amazing weekend watching the draft, hopefully watching the Browns select the, future Pro Bowlers, future players that are going to be hoisting that Lombardi in a few years. That's what it's all for at the end of the day. Don't get angry if they don't pick your play. Well, I say don't get angry. Of course, we'll all get angry, but don't let it get, too annoyed and you turn your TV off because they didn't draft the player that you wanted them to draft. It's all part of the process. And in the end of the day, we're never going to know. Well, I say never going to know. We're not going to know for at least 2 to 4 years whether or not any of these picks worked out anyway. So enjoy it, guys. I know that I will be. I look forward to seeing everyone's reactions to the picks. Can't wait for it. But most importantly, go Browns.